We've just finished learning the last of our information about participles, and so we're going to start with infinitives. It's actually easier, I think, than studying participles because you've been using them early on since Latin 1, and also they're a bit more common in English than participles are. The first one we're going to talk about is complementary infinitives, which you've been using all the way since I think the first or second week of Latin 1. Now, there are some verbs that only make sense if they're combined with an infinitive. You're very familiar with these. They are called complementary infinitives. If I said I want to go to the beach, here's my infinitive here, desidero ire ad litus. If I don't have the infinitive in there, I want to the beach, that doesn't make any sense. So the infinitives help further define what's going on. We are able. If I just said we are able, that doesn't make any sense. But we're able to swim. Here we have natare, just the plain old infinitive. That verb you learned last couple of weeks of Latin 1, posse, it often takes an infinitive. It naturally has an infinitive with it, so you can always look for one. Now, complementary infinitives can be associated with adverbs, objects, prepositional phrases, etc. I'll show you how that works, because infinitives actually behave as nouns. All right, let's go. We dare to swim in the sea. Here is our infinitive. Here it is again, in mare natare. Here's our infinitive. In mare natare audemus. If the whole phrase is we dare to swim in the sea. Here we have a prepositional phrase. In Latin, we would make that ablative singular because in takes the ablative here. And because it translates as in. So there we can associate them. They're associated with or they're combined with a prepositional phrase. In this next one, we hesitate to touch the fish, or piscem tangere dubitamus. It's associated as a direct object. We call that the accusative. You can see this is the accusative ending in Latin. So what do we do? What is being touched? What's the victim of that? The fish. So this is our direct object, or in Latin, the accusative. So lots of things that they can go with. But you know all these, you just didn't know they were called complementary infinitives, or at least you didn't remember. Now let's talk about subjective infinitives. So again, verbs can behave like nouns. You've known them to behave like adjectives. You've been learning about that. Now they behave like nouns. Pretty much they can behave like anything almost. They do not behave like adverbs. So they can behave like nouns. Infinitives that act like a subject is called a subjective infinitive. The most common use of an infinitive in Latin is as a noun. So when an infinitive acts like a subject noun, it's called a subject infinitive. I don't need you to remember that, just to be familiar with the term should you encounter it. Now, a subjective infinitive can act as a nominative singular noun. Okay, and I like this because the rules are a little bit more simple, and it's paired with a third person singular verb. A subject infinitive can be translated as to verb or verbing. So let's look at some examples here. Here we have our infinitive, right? I've highlighted it for you. Currere Marcum de fatigat. Okay. To run tires Marcus. It tires Marcus to run. Running tires Marcus. Those are all the ways we can say it. Marcus is not the subject of the sentence. Marcus is actually the object, because what is the victim of being tired? Marcus is. What tires? That's the nominative, to run. There it is as a noun. It tires Marcus to run. Running, what tires Marcus? Nominative. And it, what tires? What's the it? What's the it referring to? To run. So again, it or to run is the subject. So a subjective infinitive can be associated with adverbs, objects, prepositional phrases, just like it could with a complementary infinitive. So let's take a look and see how that works as well. All right. Celeriter carere. So clearly, carere is the infinitive. Running quickly is the infinitive. You could say to run quickly as well. So either one is fine. And here's running quickly. Quickly, we know, is an adverb. So here it can be associated with an adverb. The second one, Marcum videre, seeing Marcus. You could also say to see Marcus, right? Tires me. What tires you? Right? Seeing Marcus, right? So what is the you can see that this is set as the accusative. To see who is being seen? Marcus is being seen. So Marcus is in the accusative. He's the victim of being seen. All right. When joined with a predicate adjective, that's an adjective that's after the verb, a predicate adjective, the infinitive is always neuter. That means the adjective that modifies the infinitive will be neuter as well because, of course, what do we know? Adjectives have to match the nouns they modify in gender, case, and number. And the infinitive is going to be acting like a noun, so therefore it can have a predicate, it can have an adjective that describes it. To run under the sun is difficult. So to run is the infinitive. We've got more infinitives here. To run. And we can also, remember, we can always do to run or running. So here's the infinitive again. And here is the infinitive again. So what is difficult? Here is our adjective. Difficult. Here is our adjective. Okay? What is difficult describing? Difficult describing is describing running, right? Or to run. It modifies, it's describing running. What kind of running? Difficult running. So it answers the adjective question. All right. Objective infinitives. Objective infinitives can also act as the direct object. So that's why it's called objective, because direct object in Latin, we know that is the accusative. So, say it again. Infinitives can also act as the direct object of the verb. And like subjective infinitives, they can be translated as to verb or verbing. So, here we go. These three, to fight or fighting. I'm going to give it to you both ways. Rex pugnare amat. The king loves to fight. We can also say the king loves fighting. What does the king love? To fight or fighting. So it is actually the victim of the verb. So it would be considered the accusative, the direct object. Now we're not going to label it as the accusative, but understand that's actually the function, because remember, it can behave as a noun. Infinitives behave as nouns. Participles behave as adjectives. All right. So not as a verb. Remember how participles, because they still retain some of their verbal attributes, their origins were in verbs, they could have a direct object. Again, infinitives not only can it be the object, but can have an object of its own. So let's take a look at this. Rex equitem vincere cupit. The king. Okay, so let's label this. Rex is obviously nominative. Vincere is the infinitive. Cupit is third singular present tense. Equitem has to be in the accusative singular. So start with the nominative first. The king wants. What does he want? To beat. So in this case, to beat is the object of wants. What is wanted? To beat. So this actually acts as the accusative or the direct object. To beat what? The knight. What do they want to beat? The knight. So this also, the knight acts as a direct object of the infinitive to beat. And it can have one because remember, infinitives can act as nouns. Okay? All right. And it also can be associated with adverbs, objects, prepositional phrases, etc. So if I said Rex cum equite pugnare, okay? This is the infinitive, and we know cum equite is an ablative singular prepositional phrase. The king, here's our nominative. Here, parat is third singular. You remember third singular present tense. The king prepares what? The infinitive. To fight with the knight. There's our prepositional phrase. So in the same way, it can have a prepositional phrase or adverbs or anything like that associated with it. A couple of things. This frequently appears. You'll see this with the verbs wolo, nolo, and malo. The subject of the infinitive is always in the accusative. So the subject of the objective infinitive is always in the accusative case because the infinitive clause is the object of the main verb. Okay, hold on. Let's talk about this, okay? All right. Let's talk about frequently appears with the verbs nolo, wolo, and malo. Here we go. Wolo means I want. This is our accusative. I want you to sing. Right? This is an objective infinitive. This is what we've just been talking to. It acts like the direct object of the verb. I want what? What is the object of being wanted? I want you, but I also want you to sing. This also acts like the direct object. Okay? Volo te cantare Carmen. I want you to sing. So I want you to sing what? So this acts, I want you to sing. And then to sing what? To sing a song. So again, we've got this, everything's acting as the direct object of the other thing. So I know that's confusing, but basically what is being wanted? You are being wanted. What? I want what? To sing. So it can act as the direct object of the verb there. And what? And to sing what? Because it's a verb, it can have a direct object of its own. To sing what? What is to be sung? A song is to be sung. All right. Complementary infinitives are remember back at the very, very beginning. This is the difference. Volo cantare. I want to sing. Okay? Carmen volo cantare. I want to sing a song. So remember, objective infinitives can also act as the direct object of the verb. I want to sing. There isn't anyone in there, right? All right. Now, let's talk about the last thing today. We're going to talk about something called a gerund. Okay? Not to be confused with a gerundive. The gerundive comes from the perfect passive participle. That's not what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to erase that so you don't have a visual memory of that. A gerundive is a verb that behaves like an adjective. A gerund is a verb that functions as a noun. I did not name them very close to each other. I don't know who did that. Anyway, it's usually translated as verbing. It's always active and sometimes like a regular infinitive to verb. It never appears in the nominative case. Okay? And it will never be the subject of the sentence because it won't ever be in the nominative. It's always singular. And to form it, you take the present stem of the verb, third and fourth IO have an IE before the ending, add an ND, and then add the second declension neuter endings. Okay? So it's neuter, nominative, singular, always. Okay? So this one actually is formed, and it has a neuter nominative, the second declension neuter endings. All right, let's take a look at this. Currere facile est. The nominative uses the infinitive. Running is easy. Remember, it doesn't have a nominative, so we have to use the regular infinitive. We don't change the infinitive at all. Regular infinitive for the nominative. Amorem currendi habet. He has a love of running. Doesn't have a do in it. Can. I'll give you another example. So, but we still have of running. Amorem cursum currendi habat. He has a love of running a race. Though it has a direct object in that one, right? That cursum is the direct object. Because remember, infinitive is still a verb, so it can take a direct object. And remember, most of the time, it's going to be verbing, right? Okay. There'll be a couple of times where it makes sense to use just the to be, but it's got to make in good English sense. All right. Aptus currendo est. He is fit for running. We have that by with the to or for, right? He is fit for running. Aptus cursum currendo est. He is fit for running a race. Again, this one can have a direct object because it retains its verb roots. All right. Aptus cursum currendo est. Oh, we just did that one. Sorry. Domum ad dormiendum venet. So here is the direct object. Dormiendum. We've got that. See how we do it? We've got the nd, the dative ending on it, the genitive ending on this one. Dormient. There's the nd. Here's an accusative ending on it. And he went home to sleep. Now, this one doesn't make as much sense. You wouldn't say he went home sleeping because that would change the entire meaning of the sentence. So he went home to sleep. That one makes more sense, just as the translated into English as the infinitive. So vincit modo currendo. So here again, we have the nd, and then we have an ablative neuter ending there. He wins just by running, and here's our by with from that we do. And then cursum currendo vincit. He wins the race by running. So this has an accusative in it, in direct object. Okay. Like the gerundive, the gerund may show purpose when accompanied by ad or causa. It is only accusative when we use with the preposition ad. Those are just rules you're going to have to learn. By the way, everything's in your chart book. We start with infinitives on page 20, so you can go back and use this for reference. All right. Venit ad legendum libros. He came to read books. It shows purpose. What was the reason that he came? He came to read books. And this is the infinitive, and this shows the purpose. And it's only accusative when used with the preposition ad. So it can be used with causa and a genitive phrase. Remember this for the sake of, for the purpose of. Claudet in iam nuam obscurandi crimen causa. He shuts the door. So here we have in the genitive, they have the nd and the genitive I. This is the genitive. This is the accusative. Okay. He shuts the door for the purpose of obscuring the crime. And to do a to in here, to obscure, he shuts the door for the purpose of, or to obscure the crime. All right. So gerunds can sometimes take a direct object, although usually Latin uses the gerundive instead. So if I said, Amorem carmina cantandi habeo, I have a love of singing songs. Okay. How do you know if it's a gerund or a gerundive? I've got a handy dandy little chart here that's also in your chart book. A gerund is a noun. A gerundive is an adjective, behaves like an adjective. A gerund is always neuter singular. And a gerundive modifies a noun, so it has to be in the same case, number, and gender. Could it be neuter singular? Yes. But look at how it's behaving. And they both end in ing. So don't be confused by that. All right, work through your homework. Watch this again if you need to. Remember, everything's in your chart book starting on page 20, so you can go back and take notes and use that to help you out.